Good morning. This is Michael McGinnis. I'm the Family Support Coordinator for Washington County Public Schools. And today I'm presenting When Your Child Receives a Diagnosis, One Family's Journey, Lessons We Learned Raising a Child with Autism, ADHD, Language Delays, and Motor Delays. My name is Michael McGinnis. I've been with Washington County Public Schools for 23 years. 18 of those were as a classroom teacher. And the last 5 I have spent in the special ed department as a family support coordinator. So what I'm doing there is serving as an in-house alternative to outside advocacy and legal counsel, and apprising parents of their rights under IDEA and COMAR, and pointing them to resources outside the school system that they can take advantage of. Think seminars, in-home help for children, mobility equipment, lending programs, stuff of that sort. So been doing that for the last 11 years, the last 5 years, but 11 years and 2 months ago, my son was born, and I'd like to introduce you now. Here's Gabriel. Born April 25th, 2015, Gabriel was 11 pounds, 4 ounces, an enormous but healthy baby. Just had a little bit of jaundice that we had to put the UV blanket on him for once he got home, but he was a big, healthy baby.
Blinky. Hey, Blinky. Hey.
So a couple months in, I took him along to my weekly grocery store trip that I typically would take my daughter along with. And so I got to take them both. But it was only after getting into the store for that first time that I realized how do I manage one cart with a baby in a carrier and a 2-year-old sitting in the cart. So then I had to pull 2 hair ties out of my man diaper bag and tie 2 carts together. And that's how I got through that first trip. So Gabriel was a healthy boy, but we did have some early indicators that Gabriel was different than his older sister, born 2 years before him. One thing was that he was always very difficult in temperament. My daughter, who's now 13, was easy to breastfeed, great disposition all throughout her young childhood. And Gabriel was, by comparison, extremely hard. He fought breastfeeding all the way. And my wife pulled a lot of her hair out because of that. And he used to do this thing when I would hold him where he would stretch his neck backwards and crane his neck and look like he was stretching himself out. And we used to say that because he was so huge, being 11 pounds, 4 ounces, when he came out, that he must have needed to stretch. But then we later found out more plausible reasons for that behavior. But here in this middle photo is me taking both kids to preschool. Hagerstown Children's School had a 2-year-old preschool program. And here on the right is the only class photo we have of Gabe from that time. Unfortunately, he's sitting on the teacher's lap while crying. As he was there longer, more difficulties came to light with regard to his participation in the preschool program. Elopement was probably the biggest issue. Gabriel would just run away fairly indiscriminately. Out of the classroom he went enough times so that they installed a metal baby gate in the classroom, inside the classroom door. But Gabriel figured out that with brute force pushing on the gate that it would pop right open. So I eventually came in and bolted it to the floor. And then a couple of things happened concurrently. We had been asked to complete rating scales at home. in order to judge his progress on where he was and developmental steps. And we returned those results, and I do credit that principal of that school to this day, that she said, "We think you need to take Gabriel to a doctor." And so we did, and that started us down a months-long journey of evaluations, interviews, assessments, appointments that ended up with us receiving diagnoses of ADHD, autism, fine and gross motor delays, and an expressive language disorder. So also, unfortunately, around this time, the school had met with us and said, we don't think we can meet Gabriel's needs next year. And we had to find him new accommodations, as it were. But as devastating as all those events were taken together, those diagnoses did give us some really important things. It gave us language to use to describe what exactly was going on with Gabriel. It gave us some direction, places to turn for information, places to reach out for help. Gave us understanding that he wasn't just trying to be obstinate or misbehave. It availed us of services. Here's a photo of him on this balance beam doing physical therapy at the Pediatric Movement Center. And it kind of opened us up to a community of people raising exceptional children. And that in turn gave us hope that we weren't alone. But as it happens, this we discovered around the same time that at the age of 2 years and 10 months old, Gabriel had taught himself to read.
We have a learning 2-year-old in our building.
So here he was reading with a friend at the preschool before being asked to leave. But yeah, taught himself to read it too. So how can diagnoses such as these affect the school experience? This is very important. I'm just going to pick out some of the big ones here, but I'm not going to read them all. With autism spectrum disorder, Gabriel always has had difficulty with social interaction and understanding social cues. He would typically just ignore children coming right up to him, his own age, and would almost never make eye contact unless he was really familiar with you. He's always struggled with changes in routine or transitions. And also around this time, his sensory sensitivities came to light that affected his focus and participation. For instance, he has a real hard time dealing with a loud din going on. Think like an auditorium full of people or elementary school lunchtime cafeteria. Has a real hard time tolerating those environments. With the ADHD, Gabriel has difficulty sustaining attention and staying on task, and he's easily distracted by internal or external stimuli. He's always had a big difficulty waiting his turn and avoiding interrupting others. With his expressive language delay, Gabriel has always had challenges expressing thoughts, needs, and ideas clearly. And he kind of uses a limited vocabulary and has significant difficulties to this day finding words. Difficulty retelling events has been a constant throughout his life. Getting him to recount something that happened just a few hours previously requires you to ask lots and lots of simple follow-up questions to get a picture of what happened. Under fine and gross motor delays, Gabe's always had difficulty with handwriting, letter formation, and written tasks. He's always had challenges when using scissors, coloring, and with the gross motor, he's always had difficulties with balance, coordination, and physical activities. Okay. But how can schools help? So for these different problems, there are different ways in which the school can provide supports and services to help you. Now, I am biased because, of course, I work within the special education department of Washington County Public Schools. And so it is hard for me not to reference special education services. Sorry. But under autism, visual schedules, just about every preschool classroom I run into nowadays has a visual schedule. And actually, I've seen them so much, I kind of thought that I should have had them in my high school classroom because it just gives everyone a sense of what's coming up next without the need to fret over it or worry about it or bother the teacher for that matter. There is social skills instruction that can be explicitly taught through a 504, through special education services, through even an informal arrangement with the school. Sensory supports, there are ways to help with sensory integration. Probably one of the most base supports would be the use of headphones to reduce noise. And of course, structured routines. Washington County Public Schools does offer a special education program called RISE, Reaching Independence Through Structured Environments. And it is just as it sounds. It's meant to really hone in on that ASD tendency to want to deal with the concrete of things and an emphasis on hands-on modalities to access curriculum over conceptual abstraction. So we do have those supports for your child as well. Under ADHD, one can have movement breaks, organizational supports like graphic organizers, chunked assignments, as in assignments broken up into smaller pieces, and extended time. With language delays, there's speech therapy, of which Gabriel does receive both inside and outside of school. Visual supports, pairing, let's say, verbal instructions or written instructions with visuals has always been helpful for him. You can specify in an IEP, for example, the directions are simplified. With fine motor delays, Gabriel does receive occupational therapy both inside and outside of school. There's a wide array of adapted writing tools that you can use. And now that we're getting into middle school, we're starting to talk about keyboard access, thinking like text to speech, speech to text. With the gross motor delays, there's physical therapy. Gabriel receives this in school. And of course, there are modified physical activities, adaptive PE programs, and adaptive equipment for kids with more serious neuromuscular conditions. And for emotional regulation, this is where the work of school counselors can shine and social workers. Counseling services can be part of an IEP. Calming strategies can be explicitly taught. And then, of course, there's behavior support plans, as exemplified by the Functional Behavior Assessment, or FBA, and the Concordant Behavior Intervention Plan, the BIP, the FBA and BIP. FBA determines the antecedents and motivations for behavior, and the BIP works to replace those disruptive behaviors with more productive ones. And So next, we're going to talk about like how, in particular, Gabriel's disabilities and maybe your child's disabilities maybe manifest themselves in everyday life in some different categories. I give a series of talks to the tot time parents, that is teachable opportunities for threes in the birth to K special ed department of Washington County Public Schools. Now, for bedtime, Gabriel has never had sleep disturbances per se, but his bedtime difficulties really center around his preferred hours. Gabriel gets up out of bed at about 4 a.m. every day. It's June 17th right now, and he's been doing June 17th, 2026. He's been doing that for the last 7 years. But along the way, we found out that different sensory experiences would help him to settle down for sleep. One of them being baths. We did baths for a long time. And also, let us not forget the tried and true sitting on daddy's lap on a rocker and reading. Only this time it's with a kid who taught himself to read, and by 3 years, 3 months could read with prosody. So here's what reading time looked like.
Reading.
Dear Duncan, I listen. I'm Jesus, the great strike in the wizard has. Makes me crazy so much. The gorgeous colors go outside lines. Go outside lines soon. Company use it. Every leaf in purple crayon.
And so along those same lines, sensory friendly solutions to help him calm down in the evening. We saw that he liked to sort of cocoon himself in blankets. So we got a space-themed tent that's about the size of a twin mattress on the bottom, and we had that in his room for a long time. And then as he got older and a little bit more verbose, we incorporated the worry jars. Even neurotypical parents have probably a lot of times encountered that situation where you are trying to tuck your little one in, and there's the "I have to tell you something, Daddy." So we did eventually incorporate the worry jar, where we'll write down those things that we're worried about or those thoughts that we want to tell Dad, and we save them for the next day. And that's worked out pretty well. For mealtime, I think that if there's one theme that goes throughout these different areas where disabilities manifest themselves, is that the right solution, one of the things I tell my parents, the right solution, like the thing that will get your child to do X, it's not one thing that we're doing, but rather it's the tableau of, let's say, services, accommodations, and supports, and different practices and equipment that we put into place that I think all comes together that generates better results over time. I just don't think in real life there's very often a miracle pill or a miracle practice that all of a sudden makes a huge difference immediately. So to that end, Gabriel has always had trouble not getting his food everywhere. Those are rice pieces all over his face. And so from an early age, we invested in a lot of different adaptive equipment, toddler grip, spoons and forks, and then later more adaptive things with larger handles that he can more easily grip. And for a long time, we had that crumb mat beneath his high chair. And it was also during the food phase of his young childhood that I rediscovered the usefulness of social stories. And I used to kind of think of them as trite, but social stories are great. They're written typically in the first person. So they're meant to be read aloud to your child. And then later, as they gain more ability to read for themselves, they can read it aloud, but it's always written from that first person perspective. So the first page starts with, I don't play with my food. If I play with my food, I will make a mess. Mommy and daddy are happier when they don't have to clean up so much food mess. Social stories are really great. You can look them up on just about any topic you can think of. All right. And for safety, again, we employed a lot of different things simultaneously to keep Gabriel safe. Probably the biggest change that we had to make for our lives is switching the exterior doorknobs around so that you had to use a key to get yourself out of your doorway or out of your, out of your house. Also had to place alarms on his windows. We did for a while employ something called a GeoBit, Jiobit. It's a smart tag, not unlike an Apple AirTag, but the GeoBit, I think it's about $80 to buy the base unit, and there's a subscription fee for $7.99 a month, and that will ping anywhere. You don't have to be close to Wi-Fi for that to work. It'll generate its own signal that you can track on an app. So we did that for a number of years. And outside in particular, because elopement continued to be an issue well into his elementary years, unfortunately. But I did stuff like putting up cones, blocking off the end of our driveway from the roadway. Of course, he could walk right through those, but it was just a barrier there to sort of reinforce where we did and did not allow him to go. And I think that taken together, all those things did help to keep him safer. But I also love some really targeted worksheets, and this one in particular, say what to say to kids instead of be careful. I got interested in this because when taking my kids to the grocery store, you'd see a small kid walk out in front of my grocery store cart, and the parents would always say something like, watch where you're going, or be careful. And the kid would like, oh yeah. And then they'd snap to attention and kind of trot closer to their parents, but then they'd go back to kind of being not really aware of what's going on around them again. So I love how these different prompts the prompts kind of foster a child's awareness, so that like when we go to the grocery store, in order to keep him engaged in what we're doing, I might say like, do you notice how all those bananas are sitting there? How much are those bananas? How many bananas do you think are in that pile? Just to get him little things, to get him like noticing what's in his environment. And the corollary there is problem solving. Like, what's your plan if you climb that boulder across that log? It's sort of meant to encourage him and any other exceptional child, or neurotypical child for that matter, to think about what they're doing and to plan ahead. Transactional language, as I said, has always been kind of tough, going back and forth with someone in a conversation. So here, as always, there are a number of strategies and supports provided simultaneously. So here's one. He was pretty young, and we were playing with some photo filters. Check this out.
Gabe, what do you think of your beard?
Why is it?
Why do you have a beard?
Yeah.
So if you notice there, when he was younger, and actually I still do this today, I'll solicit a question, he'll answer it, and then I have to listen very carefully to the words he's using So you notice in the video, I immediately restate his statement. I restate his question so that it's correctly phrased. So he says, "Why is it?" And I say, "You mean why do you have a beard?" And that has been very helpful along the way, always with the active listening, but also in doing reading enrichment activities. I've witnessed this happening one time.
Oh, yeah, he's digging up the garden. Look. What does he dig up?
So I love that. I used to think that teachers reading to classes of young kids would just do those kind of predictive statements in order to create drama and attract attention to the storyline. Like, what did he dig up? But there's also, of course, a predictive element to it. As part of transactional language, one has to read a situation so as to provide your input towards it or comment on it or ask a question about it. And so I love that. What does he dig up? What is he going to dig up? And so you really get kids thinking about what follows logistically in the next item in the sequence of events. Conversation cards, starter cards are great. There are a million different products like that for in the car, at the dinner table, just things to get a conversation started. We still use those to this day. And another one of my favorite worksheets I share with parents is the "don't say good job, say this instead," because I also got interested in conceptualizing Gabriel's problems with expressive language. I got interested in words or phrases that are overused or semantically overloaded. In other words, they're said so much they no longer have any much meaning to them. Particularly during sports games, I'll see parents say, like, "Good job, good job, good job." And I don't really think the kids are internalizing at all what they're being told good job about. I'm not going to read all these, but I just want to cite a couple examples that I really like. Like, instead of saying good job when kids do well on tests or exams, you can say, "You worked really hard to understand the material. Your hard work and effort paid off." So you're saying so much more to them than just good job. You're pointing out their hard work, and you're pointing out the benefit that hard work created for them. And the corollary here, instead of saying good job when kids try hard and still fail, you can say, "I see that you really want to get this right. What else can you try?" I love that because oftentimes, like, good job is kind of like, it sounds like the end of a conversation. Like, you try and fail at something and someone says, "Good job, moving on." But I love how this kind of flips the script and say, "I see you really want to get this right. What else can you try?" So it's emphasizing, like, no, we're not done with the problem. You just have to try something else. Love it.
Oh, yeah.
So self-care has been one of our harder issues to deal with over the years. But some of the big things that we have felt are the most helpful is, number one, modeling. If left to his own devices, Gabriel would never shield his eyes from the sun, wear a hat or sunglasses, or think about sunscreen. But he watches Daddy do all those things. And so that when we go for walks, I get significantly less fight out of him because he sees me doing the same things I'm asking him to do. And that also can extend to what we're wearing, putting on the tie like Dad in order to look nice. Here in the middle, when we were trying to get Gabriel to use the small toddler potty in his room, we actually made a long series of visual cards that had him doing actions with captions, and it was outlining all of the steps. You got two of them ripped off here, but it was outlining all the steps that he should take in order to use that potty, like take down your shorts, take down your pull-up, throw the pull-up away, sit down on the potty, pee, then wipe, throw the poop, throw the pull-up away, get a new pull-up, all the steps. And his shower routine also originally started like that, and that it started an 18-point list of things for him to do. He has gravitated towards lists, and we found that that's pretty successful for him. But fast forward to just about a month or two ago, this is what shower time looks like right now.
Maybe the that
And
one.
here we are outside the shower. We have 2 minutes on the timer.
There we go. I finally got a 10.
We got a 10 out of 10 for proper amount of toothpaste put on the toothbrush. And we're about to start the timer. So you can see he has separate visual step guides for brushing teeth and showering, the timer, and he does sit on the floor of the shower because I would attribute that to the gross motor delays and that he has hard time balancing. So he's more stable to sit on the ground of the shower, the floor of the shower rather. And him referring to getting a 10, I noticed that once he started taking over putting his own toothpaste on the toothbrush, that we had a really hard time getting the proper amount on there, oftentimes way too much. So I started this 10-point rating scale. It's like 10, that was the perfect amount of toothpaste. And he just ate this up. And so he still continues to want to get a good score on toothpaste application.
Maybe.
So screen time is one of those things that I have a divided mind about. And what I mean by that is that I think that particularly in recent years, we've seen that augmentative communication devices have really come in to common use. I'm thinking like speech to text, text to speech devices, visual PEX cards that kids can point to communicate their meaning, that are based on like iPad-like devices. And Gabriel was always drawn to iPads. When he was old enough to, or young enough to still have a binky, we would do stuff like he'd sit in my lap and we'd pop only the purple balloons with our right hand and then try to go back and only pop the little yellow balloons with our left hand and then try to pop all the orange ones with both hands. Good beginning, like eye-hand coordination, bilateral coordination, motor planning. And as much as Gabriel is attracted to those screens, we have always wanted to promote balance. So my wife's best friend had this summer rules worksheet on her fridge, and I just stole it because I loved it so much. And so it's kind of setting some conditions in place that precede the use of devices. Like, have you made your bed, brushed your teeth, your hair, gotten dressed, had breakfast, plus 20 minutes of reading, writing, coloring, playing outside, cleaning up one room, made or built something creative, or helped someone in the family, then you can use electronics. So I love that kind of conditional balancing of, we're not just going to stay on our iPads all day. But at the same time, Gabriel has used his iPad ever since being about 3-4 years old for a wide variety of things. For instance, when he was 5 years old, we found that he started making his own animations.
So tadpoles don't look like frogs at first. Yeah, and then they grow arms and legs, turn green, and finally they pop out of the water. A fully grown frog.
So right now, Gabriel still makes animations to this day. He mixes audio tracks in GarageBand in particular. He uses a multi-track studio view. He samples music, combines it together from different sources to make his own beats. And he plays piano on GarageBand. Here's a very recent example.
Wait.
Toileting. Toileting has been one of the biggest challenges that we've ever undertaken. Um, it became apparent when Gabriel was 3 that we weren't going to be rushing towards potty training. So we started employing some different strategies over the years to kind of encourage him to use the potty, including the potty watch. We probably got that when he was 5 in kindergarten, that kind of can be set to go off every half an hour or so. There's time limits you can program in there that gives you a audio reminder like, hey, maybe you should go try and use the potty. And particularly when he was younger, this was one of the first times actually he'd ever used the potty. We always like to try to pair that with a lot of positive reinforcement. Today is April 18th, 2018, and Gabe just peed in the potty. Yay!
What did you just do?
Are you proud? So we also did several iterations of progress charts, this one marking like dry, slightly wet, or wet days. And then going all the way up to when Gabriel was 8 years, 4 months, we were strapping this device to his arm every night. It's a Velcro strap that has a wire that goes into the underwear that has a wetness sensor, so it will buzz or beep when it detects excess liquid. And Gabriel found this so annoying that he started to complain every time we put that on at nighttime. And as best I can tell, it's because he found it annoying that one fine day when he was 8 months, 4 years old, 8 years, 4 months old, that he became continent at nighttime and has never had an accident since. So shopping and errands, as I shared before, I like to take both my kids shopping. When we got out of the carrier phase, then we got into the let's find the cart with the big blue bench that I can buckle you into phase. We still get those carts today. Probably going to get one of those tomorrow morning. There's a great series of social stories on this subject, specifically dealing with like front loading the child. Like, we are going to go today, I'm going to go shopping. And it kind of walks through what we're going there for, what we're going to get, and what we're going to do with the things that we put in our cart, and the whole process. Love it. And occasionally allowing Gabriel to start pushing the cart gives him that experience of like, what is it like to like be in charge of the cart and navigate through the store? And we also employed the little helper shopping list, which I think is great for him to mark with a crayon as we go through the as we go through the store, so that he can kind of be a part of that process and not just a passive observer. Transitions, as I mentioned before, transitions can be difficult. Again, those visual schedules are a great way to create predictability in routine, communicate what's coming up next. I love social stories around transitions, particularly ones that center around the use of a timer, because I love how the use of a timer kind of allows you as a parent to avoid a power struggle. So when you set a 5-minute timer and it goes off, you say, oh, it's time to come inside. Why is it time? Because the timer went off. Why is it time to come inside? It's not because mommy and daddy are being authoritative. It's because the timer went off. So it's time to come in. And this really helps, I think, transitioning from preferred to non-preferred activities. But we also figured out that giving Gabe some extra audio cue, I'm thinking of the cleanup song in Barney, can be helpful. But this time we were using Hall & Oates' Kiss on My List to signal that it was time to clean up toys in the living room. And we also found, particularly when coming in from outside, which we really prefer, that it would be helpful to have Gabe put himself in a body sock right before we bring him indoors. That kind of presses in on you from all sides. It's not super tight, but you can definitely feel like you're inside of a giant sock.
Oh no. No. Don't I eat? Mama eating all over the table.
So this gets to our frequently asked questions. How should I best partner with my child's school? I would say communication, communication, communication. Particularly when you're part of an IEP team and your kid is receiving special education services, you are a part of that team. It is standard good practice for a team to be aware of what is working at home to mitigate problem behaviors, situations, and vice versa. Parents and schools should be sharing with one another like what's going on in their respective environments to try to troubleshoot accommodations and supports in a way that allows better functioning in both environments. To take this example, that came from just this school year, Gabriel's fifth grade teacher said to us at his annual review meeting in March that he is having some trouble with four main behaviors. He doesn't have his materials out when he's supposed to have them out, like think pencils, markers, books. He is continuing to ask to clean his glasses or go to the bathroom in the middle of instruction as opposed to before or after. He was picking his belly button and nose excessively, and he'd gotten into having a tic where he would cover his ears. He does cycle through sensory sensitive behaviors over time. They'll cycle in and cycle outwards. And most recently was this kind of a tic. I would call it akin to stimming, and that he would flinch and cover his ears in response to unexpected sounds, loud sounds, or things that he didn't want to hear. So, taking the latter in a school setting, you can see how it's easy for a teacher to construe covering your ears when you don't want to hear something as disrespectful. So I said to his teacher, I was like, let me make this spreadsheet and I'll share it with you, and we're going to target these four behaviors. And so we went over these with Gabe. We said, having your materials ready is just a non-negotiable, like you need to have your stuff out. But for the last three, we offered replacement behaviors. So in other words, instead of asking to clean your glasses or go to the bathroom during instruction, try to make it a point to go before she starts teaching or after or during recess or lunch. With picking the belly button and nose, Gabe, start using your fidgets. We have a book bag full of them. And with the covering your ears tic, we tried to get him to make a movement that would not be a full-fledged flinching / sticking his fingers in his ears, but he could also kind of physically manifest what he's feeling when he hears something unexpected, loud, or that he doesn't really want to hear. So we kind of put it to her that, like, yes, this is a little bit extra work for you to do this every day, but if you'd be willing to comment on how much these different problem behaviors got in the way of him getting his education, 5 being a minimal problem, 4 light, 3 moderate, 2 heavy, and 1 severe, we track that. And so we did that from the March 23rd And we would back that up with consequences at home. Like if he got a 2 or a 1, then he would lose a certain amount of iPad time, or you'd have to plug it in sooner in the evening. And as of April 15th, she stopped filling out the form. And about a week later, I ran into her, and I was kind of hoping no news was good news. And she confirmed that it was, that we had successfully extincted these 4 problem behaviors. So partnering with your kids' school means like getting involved, staying involved, and communicating. Like, what do they need? What are their needs there? What are your needs at home? That you're communicating all this is good. The other question I get, it's a little deeper. Do I have to change my whole life for my child? And the answer is yes, to the degree that your child needs a modified environment or others to assist them, accommodate them, support them. You do have to change your whole life. But I do like to share this story that in 2019, here was me. This was the same year I was on the phone with his RBT, registered behavior technician, in tears, saying, how do I get this kid to sleep? Because remember, he gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning. My wife and I both work as educators. So how do I get this kid to sleep? I have to function. Well, ultimately, we did not ever find a solution that would get him to not get up at 4 in the morning. But during the pandemic, I decided I had to lean into this. And so I started getting up with him and exercising in the morning. And over the course of the pandemic, I lost 50 pounds and no longer have high blood pressure or cholesterol. So I just shared this little anecdote because it's to say there's a lot of negative emotions that I think it's okay to acknowledge, like feeling trapped in my own house because I had to lock myself in to keep my son safe for years on end, having to get up at 4 in the morning. It doesn't feel great. But in this particular instance, and in all instances, I think it is a good idea to keep in mind that the ways in which we have to change our lives to raise our children don't have to be universally detrimental, if that makes sense. So thank you for letting me present on this topic, and we'll see you next time.